So I will talk about the healing powers of consciousness. And yesterday we heard a little from Nikolaj, from how in the academic world one researches into consciousness. And there in natural science, you always have to look from outside. You have to look at an object and not be subjective. And this, I think, is a big difference being a spiritual researcher. We have to look from our inside, because the consciousness, we cannot really see it in somebody else, but we know that we have it, that we have a consciousness. And that consciousness is actually, it's our life experience, really. And maybe an easy way to describe consciousness, Martinus has different ways. I like very much the one where he says it's a world of thoughts, and it feels like it's a world where we are living in all the time, actually. And he also uses the word, it's a psychic world or a spiritual world or a mental world, but it's really something that to know it, we have to look at our own consciousness. And there we can see we have thoughts, and we have feelings, and we have memories, and we have longings, and we have a life view, which is actually now for us very inspired by Martinus. So we really have a lot of ideas about life in our consciousness. And to see how the thoughts can be so powerful that they can heal, it's not so easy to imagine, because we think thoughts are so, we can't see them and we can't grasp them, we can't touch them. They seem like thin air in a way. How can they be so powerful? And that's also the way we can answer that question, I guess, is also that we can feel when we have good, loving thoughts and are happy and grateful and forgiving, it feels really good in our body somehow, in our heart, in our life feels like life energy is coming into us more. And the other way, when we get angry or sad, or we somehow lose a contact with life, we can feel that we lose power, actually. So thoughts can be really life-giving, and they can also be death-bringing. Martinus says that some thoughts that are too much energy of gravity really take energy from us and are like death-bringing. I will start with this quote from Martinus. It's from the Eternal Word Picture, Volume 5, which I think is not yet translated into English, but I've done a little translating myself here. The world of thoughts is a combination of electric magnetic forces that fill the void between the physical particles of which our organism consists. We experience this combination of thoughts as our consciousness. So here, this is actually the beginning, the introduction in this book, and then he goes deeply into healing and so on. But the most important thing, I think, is that we understand that we are really electric magnetic beings with a temporary physical body. To be able to live in the physical world, we need this body, but mainly we are really electric, magnetic, conscious beings. And this thought world fills the void between the physical particles, he says. And we know from physics that our physical bodies are also mostly empty, and that's actually where our thoughts are, Martinus says. And then he also describes in this book how important it is to have the right thoughts. And he writes a lot about how diseases and illnesses are short circuits in our world of thoughts. So when we have short circuits, it really means that we somehow are disconnected from the well-being in life, from from where we feel connected to life, I guess we could say. And then he describes the brain, like we talked yesterday also about this, it's like a radio, he says. It's a receiver and a transmitter. And from our I and super consciousness, we actually send, and through our spiritual bodies, amplified through our brain and nervous system, we send electromagnetic forces and consciousness, I guess we could say. And they are all our thoughts are in a way electromagnetic wavelength or frequency or vibrations. And I think this is really important to understand in our connection to the whole universe. So I'm going to start with this symbol, the cosmic spiral cycle 1 from Martinus, and which is really a picture in a way of almost all of universe, even if it is actually even bigger. It doesn't have an end really. So we have to really open our minds, open our consciousness to grasp. It's not that easy really, but I'll try to make it a bit easier maybe. We all know I think all the spiral that we have seen in the symbol number 11. And here we are actually here now. We have been in the plant kingdom, and we are now here in the animal kingdom, and we are on our way to the real human kingdom, first in physical shape, and then we go through the spiritual planes here, the kingdom of in wisdom and the divine world, and then we come back again into the kingdom of bliss, but then also as a mineral. Where did it go? Now there is it. And then we come back, and then we are again here in the plant world, and then we are in the next spiral. And this is where our Earth, our planet Earth is. This white here, this is what our natural science thinks is alive. This is what they think is alive, the plants and the animals and we humans. But in Martinus cosmology, everything is alive. Everything is alive. There cannot be something that is not alive. Everything really has to be alive, and everything is actually permeated by this electromagnetic consciousness that we have. So there is maybe a possibility to understand how we are connected to all of this. As we were talking also yesterday, this is a mesocosmic where we are, and here this is a macrocosmos, the planet cycle, and then the cycle of the solar system and the galactic cycle. And beneath us is a microcosmos, our organs, our cells, and our atoms, the substance circle, he also calls it. And these are all physical from our perspective. We can see our Earth, we can see the sun, the solar system, we can see some of the galaxy at night, and we can see from outside, we can see our organs. From inside, we can only feel them actually, and the cells and the atoms. And this is really where we are living. Our planet Earth, Martinus writes, gives us a life, a possibility to live, a living space and life conditions. And this, that we live on the Earth, we usually think that we live on the Earth, but we actually live in the Earth, in the electromagnetic conscious field of the Earth. So we are really also very connected. And in the same way, the Earth lives in the conscious field of the solar system and so on. And also our organs live inside of us. We are like a universe for our organs, he says, for our cells and for our atoms. And from one perspective, the Earth, if this would be the mesocosmos, the Earth looks at us and says we are its brain cells. So in that way, we are all different depending on the perspective, the principle of perspective. And this maybe also takes a while to understand how that it's all, we are all connected all the time. But this doesn't stop here. If we go up here, it actually goes on, and this Martinus calls the super macrocosmos. We don't see anything here, and it's also so far away that we cannot really see it. I guess maybe some people with these new telescopes can go further and further out, but it goes on forever. It doesn't really come to an end. And these 7 planes are repeated over and over again out into the macrocosmos, but also down into the microcosmos. So this spiral could also go on, but there we cannot see anything more. The smallest we can see is really the atom, and below that it's like there is nothing, and I guess our natural scientists think it isn't there because there is nothing to see. But then we know it goes on forever. And this is maybe, we will see later on here, this is where our thoughts have their life, which is really interesting and a bit difficult to believe maybe in the beginning. We'll see what Martinus writes in the context with this symbol. There is so much interesting information when he describes this symbol. And now I can't read the text there, so I'll have to take this paper to see. The microcosmic life varies in quality for better or worse. Since the mesocosmic beings with their special kinds of mental quality attract and provide space for the incarnation of microlife of a corresponding quality in their organisms, of physical bodies, then one here understands how important it is to create one's thoughts so that they constitute as high, good, and loving a quality as possible. And this is where he actually for the first time says that our consciousness, when we think our world of thoughts, we actually give a possibility for super microcosmic beings to incarnate and also actually become our physical body down there in a very, very far down in this spiral cycle, which you might have to think a little about until you really understand it. I'm not so sure either that I really understand it, but it's something that is interesting because it means that with our thoughts, we actually populate ourselves with living beings. And some of them are really also in a physical shape, because if we look here, we are all in this physical part. This is also the physical part, but especially here, our galaxy has to be physical, otherwise we wouldn't have anything to live in, our solar system, our Earth, and but also our organs, our cells, and further down, some of the thoughts have to be incarnate in physical matter, and some, of course, are only in spiritual matter, because some of the energies are never really incarnated in physical matter. That was the first quote from this text in the book where he describes these spiral cycles. And then he writes, harmony between the I and its microlife of the microbeings in its organism is known under the concept of health, which is the highest bodily well-being. The highest form of life experience is thus to live in harmony with one's fellow beings and to live in harmony with one's microbeings or the microlife in one's organism. So there we have a big responsibility. We can have thoughts that have like a killing quality, he says, in our organism, and we can have life-giving organism, the life-giving principle of love so it's really up to us what thoughts we have actually. And we are not really used to thinking about how every thought is actually important, because something happens deep down inside of us actually. And also to think that everything is alive in our body, even our thoughts are alive. But then Martinus actually felt that he had to make another symbol. It's a symbol number 76. It's called the Cosmic Spiral Cycle 2, the imperfect human being. And here we see 18 spirals, and they don't look like spirals anymore. He has put them in this kind of layers, but we can see all the different kingdoms in the same order as in, because if we have to make 18 in one symbol, we wouldn't see so much. This is where we are. This is where we are in the mesocosmos. And these are our organs, our cells, and our atoms, and it goes further down, and maybe somewhere here, down there, our thoughts actually incarnate, which is a bit difficult to maybe believe, but that's the way he describes it here. And then if we go further up here, this, I guess, is the planets and the solar systems and the galaxies, and then it starts again with the super macrocosmic atoms and so on. And what is also interesting, if we can open our mind that much, that we are actually also incarnated in some super macrocosmic beings' world of thoughts. So we are actually contributing to a super macrocosmic being's ability to think, which is a bit strange. But then we have to think that the time is very different. So a super macrocosmic being has a very different time, as like also our thought beings that we incarnate deep inside of us, also have a very quick incarnation and discarnation and so on. And here on this, we can also see the aura, this thing here around, and maybe we can also call this inside here the cosmic radiance. Martinus describes it only in a symbol about the earth, but it must be the same with all living beings, that there is a cosmic radiance that only a person with cosmic consciousness can see or perceive. And this is protected by this that he calls the astral aura, which is actually also a protection for us. And this is where all our thought beings are more or less incarnated in physical or in spiritual matter. And this, it describes also, is our protection. If it's filled with life-giving beings, it's a very good protection. But here we can see where we are now, the imperfect human being, he calls this symbol. It's not that clean, really. So there are also some thoughts that are not so life-giving, and things that we do in our life can also make this aura not so strong. But and we can also say that negative thoughts weaken our resistance against infections, he says. So it's really a protection, not only infections where we think physical, but it's actually also protection for I guess, negative thoughts to come in. If we have very much positive thoughts in our aura, we are also protected in a way for all the negativity around us. And now we live in this world where there's so much fear and worry and stress. So it's good to have a good protection in the aura with good thoughts. And I think having Martinus in our backbone, maybe we can say it's much easier to live the time we live in now. And here also, he has actually in this 5th Eternal World picture book, he has these drawings that look more like human beings actually, and where all the energies actually are concentrated. So the instinct of the energy of instinct is actually more in our muscles and our skin. And the energy of gravity is mainly concentrated in our digestive system, where we really need this energy to break up, down everything that we put in our stomach. And here the energy of feeling is concentrated in the lungs and heart and the chest, but also in our blood system. And the energy of intelligence, the brain and our nervous system, that's the energy is more focused there. And then here we have the intuition, but in a very instinctive form. We experience it in our primary pole, maybe we could say through our primary pole. But up here we can see some blue talent kernels, maybe. He says that the new cosmic consciousness that we are slowly developing, it will actually come into our brain, which is more connected to our secondary pole. But we'll go on here and look at this symbol, which is also in this book. It's called the human body as a stellar system. And here we can see that our body is really much more emptiness, even though there are quite a lot of suns and stars here in this picture that he made. But he says that our consciousness and our eye, our innermost eye, is what fills the empty space between all the suns inside of us. And here he also has a very beautiful story in Leavitt's book number 6, where God takes his son, his newborn son, into the cosmic opening that he can see the whole cosmos. And he also takes Martinus down into the microcosmos. This that we see here could then be an electron. So Martinus can, with his cosmic consciousness, go down into his own body and stand on one electron. And then when he looks up into his own body, it's this what he sees, a lot of stars or suns, not really this body, because he is somewhere, he sees something inside of it somehow there. And here we can also imagine that this is our earth, and that when we at night stand here and look up to the sky, we don't see this being either, but we know somehow we are living in a big super macrocosmic being. So then this symbol he has also made like this, the human being's atomic world and the basic energies. And here we see again how the energy is not just like suns and stars, but also the emptiness between all the particles are diffused with all these basic energies. And somehow we could say for our muscles and for our skin, the instinct energy is the life force for the muscles and skin. And the gravity energy is the life force in our internal organs, where they should really be. We need them there. And the feeling of energy is the life force for our lungs and for our heart and for our blood system. And in the same way, the intelligence energy is the life for the brain and for our nervous system. So all these, and then we can see this indigo color here, not around the knees, but the whole skeleton actually, and our hair and our nails. That's the mineral world. And it's actually the kingdom of bliss, the energy of bliss that is a life force for our skeleton, for the mineral world, which is maybe difficult to believe. He even writes that in the book, but this is the way it is, he says. And the energies that form our thoughts, they create corresponding physical areas in our organism, he says. So also with our thoughts, we actually give opportunity for super microcosmic beings to incarnate, because we really need a physical body to be able to live in this physical world. And he writes a lot about this in this book. Negative thoughts create a mess, he says. And we have to think the right loving thoughts to keep healthy. And since I also teach Qigong and Tai Chi, I've been very much into Taoism and Chinese medicine. There is a very beautiful practice that I do sometimes also with my students. It's called the inner smile. And there, maybe you close your eyes and you smile first to your eyes so that they are kind of soft and open, but closed behind the lids on our eyes. And then we direct our attention to the heart, maybe, and we smile to the heart. And just having this smile to the heart, you can really feel that it's something is happening inside there. And the exercise, actually, the practice says you should smile until you can feel that the heart smiles back to you. And when that happens, it's really a feeling of joy, actually. So this is something I can recommend. It's very easy. And I think it's very powerful, actually, to give loving energy to our organs and also to ourselves, of course. So then these thoughts are not so good. I'll just do it a little quick here. Bitterness, we can all see it's not so good, and disappointment and impatience and jealousy and fear and antipathy and depression, stress and worry. But we all recognize them, I guess, and we have them sometimes. And Martinus he says we have to become aware as quick as possible when we get into these thoughts and feelings. Because if we have, for example, bitterness for a long time and we get more and more bitter, actually it somehow happens that it can become a tumor in our physical body. It maybe takes years, but it's a slow accumulation. And I guess all of these, if we have them for a long time, and if then there is also hate, he says it can be very terrible, actually, to have a tumor in the brain, maybe, and maybe we don't survive that. So I guess our work now is very much to be aware of the thoughts that we have and to be forgiving, because we come from the animal kingdom and we have all these Tanakh currents for all these things, maybe not depression and stress, because I think animals really don't have that, but a lot of this is something that it just happens. But if we start to look at our thoughts, like it's like being a gardener, he says, sometimes we can pick the thoughts we want to have if we are aware of them. And with our ability to think, we must learn to regulate and keep our own organism in order. First of all, we must do this by not hurting and harming outwards. Then we can ourselves overcome the diseases we get through infection or in other ways. And all the thoughts we have, they actually flood our whole organism before they go out. Also the things that we do to other people when we hurt or harm outwards, not just with our thoughts, it is through us also. And now I see that I'm a bit late, so I'll just spring this, which is Kelly Hunter, Radical Remission is a book. Maybe some of you know it. And there was a wonderful story that I wanted to tell you, but I won't do it. I'll just go very quickly through this. The Organic Electricity is a lecture Martinus held in 1954. And very shortly, he says that our physical organism is an amplifier for our consciousness. We know that now. Our thinking is like a living radio. Our thoughts come from our psychic nervous system and brain to our physical brain and physical nervous system. And he says we are flame beings. The principle of love is a keynote of the universe. So it's, even if we cannot be all loving yet, not have this universal love, but we can be kind, he says. And this is also a quote from that article that is actually in Swedish and Danish, but here I've translated it. Every time we forgive our neighbor, every time we are not offended by something, every time we wish something good for others, and every time we can send a loving thought to a terrible criminal, every time we send out a little light, we are shining and radiant. We must become a shining being so that wherever we walk across the earth, life grows. Joy, zest for life, and love grow in such a way that we really feel that we are an angel of light and that we really are God's messenger on earth. And the last symbol is also one of my favorites, with the one that is called the Spirit of God up on the face of the water, or also the cosmic impulses of the creative principle. I like to think that this is a picture of the whole universe, but it's also a picture actually of every one of us, all living beings, and that we also are these shining flame beings, that he says, that send energy to all our organs, our cells. And we can also imagine all our organs and cells, they all have this. We are all sending and the light. And if you only see, actually, he says also, we are really only light beings. We are shining light beings, even if we don't perceive it like that now in our physical body. But we can imagine that the light shines everywhere inside of us. So now I will stop. Thank you for listening. And I stop share like that. Yeah.